So in the border peace, there is no veto, and he doesn't have to get the approval of majority of members or whatever, so he can do what he wants. So it's a very dangerous idea, but he's put his full weight behind it, and he's in effect threatening and coercing countries to join, failing which they will earn his displeasure. I think our Prime Minister has behaved with great restraint and with wisdom, and has not fallen into the trap.
The illusion of international rules-based order is collapsing, and collapsing very fast. Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, while speaking at the World Economic Forum at Davos, he quoted Václav Havel to say that it was like living within a lie. So discuss what is happening around the world, which is changing so fast that it is very difficult to keep pace with us, with the whole incidences. We have with us Shri Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary. Thank you for sparing time for us again, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And welcome, sir. Sir, I found it to be an extraordinary speech, this speech by Mark Carney, because India has been saying the same things for at least for the past 4 or 5 years, ever since this Ukraine war began. External Affairs Minister has been speaking on these issues only. But perhaps the first time a Prime Minister and from the Western Hemisphere has spoken about this. So I was going through the whole speech, sir, and I'll quote him, sir. He says that it is rupture in the world order, the end of a nice story, and the beginning of a brutal reality, where geopolitics among the great powers is not subject to any constraints. Quote closed. He then goes on to say that the strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must. Quote closed again, sir. So while Mark Carney, for him, he's admitting, perhaps because the shoe is beginning to pinch now, since the attention of the leader of the world order is now turning towards the Western Hemisphere. But isn't that the reality the rest of the world has been living with for a very long time?
Yes, of course. I mean, you look at Mark Carney's predecessor, Trudeau. He was very much part of all this hypocrisy and double standards and living a lie that Carney is speaking about. And Carney himself tried to reach out to Trump. Remember, he had put on that big display where he was quoting Ronald Reagan's position on tariffs. And then he was warned by Trump and the Americans to take it off, and he took it off. The thing is that Trump has never relented from humiliating Canada, of talking about Canada as a 51st state, saying that there's nothing that Canada produces that the United States needs, and that Canada exists because of the United States and the security the US provides, and that it will be better off if Canada became a part of the United States. Now, after Trump revived the Monroe Doctrine and added to that the Trump corollary, and intervened in Venezuela and made it very clear that he's going to deal with force with countries that don't abide by the agenda, whether it's Mexico or Colombia or whatever else. I think Carney began to see the writing on the wall, that his efforts to try and appease Trump were not working. And so he decided at Davos to take the Americans headlong. Added to that, and maybe a triggering factor also, was the whole issue of the Arctic and Trump's claim on Greenland. Now, the two are connected, Greenland and Canada, because apart from Russia having the biggest coastline to the Arctic, the other country with the biggest coastline is Canada. So I think Carney was looking ahead that if Trump continues to make claims on Greenland and succeeds and this and that, then he will step up pressure on Canada and circumscribe Canada's independence. So he's hit out remarkably, remarkably. All that he has said is something, as you very rightly said, the rest of the world has been saying for many years, many years. I mean, you said India has been saying this for the last 5 years. If you look at my writings, I've been saying it for a long time.
Yes, sir.
In my book of poems on double standards, you can see I've written a poem on double standards, more than one. So the important thing is that a Western leader, at the heart of the NATO alliance, one that has consistently, historically collaborated with every initiative the United States has taken for regime change, for invasions, and what have you, has come out with the hard truth because his own back is to the wall. And he has very eloquently, I must say, and very persuasively made his point by quoting Havel and how the signs that he said if one sign is taken off, then every other sign gets taken off, and he has taken the sign off, thinking and hoping that others will follow suit. But you see how little that part of his speech is getting coverage in the Western press. It is not getting coverage. Those particular things that you are saying is not getting coverage because in the process, he's not only blasting the United States, he's blasting all the members of the Western world and the G7. And therefore, they and the media are not going to buy this logic and embarrass their own leadership by saying that all of you, Macron or Merz or all the leadership of Europe and as well as Japan has been living this lie. So the point is how much of an impact this will have globally in terms of the conduct of the United States and the West. I doubt that it will have very much impact. What will happen is that two things. One, that it will give a lot of talking points to us and everybody else, because we will not be quoting ourselves or the Global South leaders, but him. And number two, this will never get effaced from history, because whenever discussions take place, when reports are written, analyses are made, the panel discussions are held, everybody will quote this. To that extent, this will have a deep impact in terms of the discourse that you'll see in think tanks and elsewhere. So to that extent, I think what he's done a great service to himself and to everybody else globally.
I'll digress a bit from Carney before coming back to him, sir, because suddenly I recall this letter written by President Trump to the Norwegian Prime Minister, which was so bizarre that initially it seems that it was created by AI and part of misinformation, where he said that since Norway did not give him the Nobel Prize, he sort of given up on peace, although he still likes peace. That is one part, sir. And the second part, which I found to be very related, is this Global Board of Peace. I mean, he once on the one side, he's not talking about peace, but the other side, he comes with a Global Board of Peace, which seems to be made for replacing the United Nations. I mean, and then you have to pay to get entry. So obviously, Netanyahu has joined in. Pakistan will obviously join in because they don't have to pay. They can borrow from somebody and give it to and get a membership. So how is this peace bit evolving, sir? Coming from Donald Trump, I find it very difficult to put a question as to this. But what exactly is this bizarre behavior? He is the strongest president of the United States, but I just don't seem to understand what he's getting to.
First of all, he's absolutely obsessed to the point of it becoming some kind of a mental condition that he has been deprived of his right to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. He has lowered his own dignity and that of the President of the United States and of the United States itself by actually accepting the transfer of the medal from a Chado to himself and putting it up in the Oval Office. That if he couldn't get the Nobel Peace Prize directly, indirectly, he has got it. He's not embarrassed by it. This is his obsession, which is why he wrote that letter to the Norwegian Prime Minister, saying that, basically, you have not given me what I deserved, and what and you made a grave error in doing so, and that while I'll still be committed to whatever I can do for peace, but basically I'm going to only protect the interests of the United States of America, and that kind of thing, as if he was not doing that even earlier.
It's very
Now,
petulant, sir, isn't it? It's very petulant, this behavior.
that's a very mild word you are using. When it comes to the Board of Peace, the whole idea developed from this Gaza business, and the solution that he had found for Gaza, which was endorsed by the UN Security Council. And in it, there is a Board of Peace. He will be Trump himself will be totally in charge of that board. And under the board, there'll be one or two other, the executive, whatever is called the executive board, and then then the ones that will be involved in the rehabilitation of Gaza, etc., in terms of reconstruction. So there are two other bodies which will be under the Board of Peace, and he will be the sole person in charge to decide everything, entirely in accordance with his wishes, and all the decisions with regard to reconstruction, this and that, will pass through him, and he'll approve. Even if there is dissent in the board, he will be the person whose voice and the decision will be final. Now, what he has done is that by the document, Board of Peace document that has been released through Israeli sources, he has broadened the entire concept well beyond Gaza. And the Board of Peace document doesn't mention Gaza at all, where he's invited world leaders to join, and he's invited 60 world leaders to join, and given them 3 days or something like that to append their signature. Now, that is where what you said comes in, that he is taking upon himself the responsibility of resolving conflicts around the world and finding peaceful solutions to these outstanding conflicts outside the purview of the UN Security Council. After all, what is the purpose of the UN Security Council as enshrined in the UN Charter? Save the future generations from the scourge of war. Global peace and security is the central responsibility of the UN Security Council. Now, by creating this Board of Peace, he is trying to supplant the UN Security Council, where other 4 countries, permanent members, have a veto. And he has also to then muster at least 9 positive votes for anything to go through if nobody vetoes. So he finds that a constraint. So in the Board of Peace, there is no veto, and he doesn't have to get the approval of majority of members or whatever, so he can do what he wants. And then he can intervene anywhere he likes in terms of Western US interests. So it's a very dangerous idea, but he's put his full weight behind it, and he's in effect threatening and coercing countries to join, failing which they will earn his displeasure. And I think countries have learned that his displeasure can be very costly. Now, couple of things I must say. One is that the invitation has gone to our Prime Minister. My own view, and I've expressed it on X more than once, is that we should stay away from it. First of all, it is undignified for the leader of 1.4 billion people, a leader of India, to subordinate himself in an organization to another foreign leader. This is not chairmanship of G7 or G20 or SCO, which is rotating and which doesn't give any extra power to the chairman because he has to look for consensus. This is totally different. So why should the Indian Prime Minister be subject to this kind of indignity, where he just sits around as if he is one of the shareholders in a big company and the CEO or the chairman decides everything. Uh, Number two, that we have Jared Kushner in that. What is Jared Kushner's standing other than the fact that he's the son-in-law of Trump? So the personal business interests of Trump uh, get reflected, will get reflected in the working of the Board of Peace. If you remember, he had initially said that move out all the Gazans out of Gaza and I'll build a Riviera there and this and that. So the reconstruction of the kind that he's envisaging, it's not low-cost housing like India did in northern Sri Lanka for the Tamilians. It is going to be very upscale stuff and what have you. So it's not meant for the Gazans. It is meant for giving business to his collaborators. So if our prime minister or other world leaders get involved in this kind of an operation, it can cause embarrassment because when things start to spill out about how things have been done wrongly and particular business interests have been promoted, there can be a backlash. So, but on the other hand, if you frankly say no, this guy is so irrational, he can say, I'm just joking now. Not joking because he threatened 500% tariffs indirectly. He can say, all right, it's 50, but I'll make it 100 now. So the best is to lie low and not say no, not say yes. And if asked, to say that we are very carefully studying the proposal. And after due deliberation and discussions and clarifications, we'll take a view. Now, the second thing which surprises me is that Lukashenko of Belarus has gone ahead and signed. And Russia and Putin has acknowledged that he has received the invitation. He has, in principle, thought well of the idea. He said, I have instructed the foreign ministry to look at this and examine it in great detail. I'll consult my strategic partners, and then I'll take a view. In other words, he's not just thrown it out of hand or rubbished it. I think he's clever enough to know what the whole game plan is, and there's no way that Putin is going to subject himself to this indignity, but he wants to keep him on his right side in order to see if he can be more helpful in resolving this Ukraine conflict and keep knocking out Europe from these discussions. So he's playing this very, how should I say, clever diplomatic game. I heard the Chinese spokesperson say that Xi Jinping has been invited to. There's no way that China is going to join. So to sum it, this Board of Peace is a ridiculous idea. It is a vanity project. It wants to, the whole thing is to flatter President Trump as the new leader of the world who can do as he pleases, and build on the fiction that he wants peace. The man who has bombed Iran, who's bombed Syria, who's bombed, who's attacked Venezuela and abducted his leader, who threatens to bomb Colombia and Mexico. He wants to take over Greenland, etc., etc. He is the man who's now projecting himself as a man of peace. Oh, he bombed Somalia also, so Sudan or Somalia, one of the two. So
he's threatening 57.
and of course, his conduct in the whole Gaza episode, where Israel has virtually wiped out Gaza and caused so much human misery, rightly or wrongly. I don't want to get into the debate about Hamas and terrorism and this and that, but the actual fact on the ground, legitimate or otherwise, he is the man who has given full cover to Israel to do what it wants to do. And now the latest, where they have bombed, destroyed the UNRWA headquarters and apparently killed a lot of the UN personnel.
Sir, a lot of Western commentators have been speaking about this. Somebody has used the word unhinged. Somebody has used the word unmoored. There have been very unparliamentary languages used in the European Parliament, I would say. But there seems to be no pushback coming from the American institutions themselves, the Congress, the Senate, the Supreme Court. So are they, I mean, I just want to get a sense as to, is the American state, the American public, okay with this unconstrained use of power, what he's displaying?
Couple of things. Uh, in the American Constitution, the Article 1 talks about the legislature, the Article 2 talks about the executive, Article 3 talks about the judiciary. In other words, the preeminent place in the US Constitution is that of the legislature, of the Congress. And here you see that the executive, over the years, has actually intruded into the powers of the Congress, but Trump has gone much further than previous presidents in this regard. And he's gone ahead and imposed tariffs without having, under emergency powers, which is now challenged in the Supreme Court. And he's doing other things internally, ICE and everything else. But more than that, his operation in Venezuela and all, there is no authority from the US Congress. So the system of checks and balances within the United States has not worked. Now, if he's able to get his way inside the United States, despite a robust tradition of checks and balances, clearly the same checks and balances will not operate externally, because there he can bring to bear his tremendous military power. Inside, he doesn't need to use military power. He just needs to threaten others, including the corporate sector, with his power to unleash inquiries, cases, as he's done against the Federal Reserve Chairman. There's a criminal investigation against him. And all these people, well, I don't know all, but, in business, all these corporates, you can always find some loophole, somewhere where they have transgressed the letter of the law. And therefore, Trump has the power to really put the FBI on their tails. So they are afraid. They're cowed down. So the corporate sector is cowed down. The Congress is not willing to stand up. The Democrats are in disarray. Others, think tanks and others, don't want to fall afoul of him. And then it is a fact that one thing which he has done, which is extremely popular amongst his base, and maybe it resonates with others, is that he has stopped all illegal migration. He stopped it. So I think that point perhaps gives him a certain strength with his base, that on one issue he has satisfied them, etc. But the point I was making is that if he cannot be contained inside the country, he can't be contained outside the country, because who will challenge him? The only countries that can challenge him are Russia and China. Russia is busy with the Ukraine conflict. It needs the support of the United States to find a solution. It wants to play politics, serious politics, in terms of containing the threat that is emerging from Europe, because Europe seems to want to prolong the conflict, and they have the capacity to put spanner in the works of Trump's initiative. So Russia is flattering Trump and saying that, there are good sides to him, and he's serious, he wants peace. If you look at the discourse that is coming from the Western side, surprised me a little bit. So Russia won't challenge him. China also has constraints. The biggest partner is the United States. It has shown its teeth. It will continue to show a little bit of its teeth. But their interests lie essentially in Western Pacific, and challenge the United States there. And they won't be interested in challenging him in Venezuela or in Latin America or even in the Middle East. Or even, I think, Iran. They'll be cheery about getting into some kind of a direct conflict with the United States. So he's able to get his way through his irrational behavior, threatening behavior, unpredictability, and his total disregard of international law, because he says that. When he was asked by the New York Times, He said, no, I don't believe in any restraint of international law. The only restraint is my own mind and my own my own morals.
Hmm.
So, so there it is. That explains it.
Vicious. But I'll come back to Mark Carney and come back to his speech, sir, because he says he talks about a lot of fiction and the American hegemony was good because it provided open sea lanes, stable financial system, collective security, and support for framework for resolving disputes. But he says that this bargain is no longer working. And finally, which is very direct here, and he says that, let me be direct, we are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. So he's talking about the world order, the world as we know it. Sir, is he over anxious or has he seen something maybe which the West was not seeing till now?
No, I think no. What he really means is that earlier on, uh, there was, if you might call it transition or whatever it was the West against the rest.
Hmm.
And they were comfortable with that because the West provided what he said, the public goods and this and that, and the currency and stability and this and that. And under that, the others could live the lie. Now, when he talks about rupture, it is entirely in the context of a rupture within the Western alliance. They are no longer united. So you have to look upon it not from the viewpoint of the rest of the world, but from the viewpoint of divisions within the Western world, where now there is a rupture because their unity is gone.
Hmm.
So Canada can no longer, for the time being, let's see what happens in years to come, rely on United States as a friendly neighbor with which they can deal on an equal basis based on the UN Charter on international law. But this guy says that, you don't have a right to exist. You're better off if you become part of the United States. So that's the rupture.
Hmm.
So I don't think this argument of rupture is something that something that the rest of the world would or let's say does not echo the concerns of the rest of the world.
Hmm.
For the rest of the world, there has been this rupture with Trump taking positions of the kind he's been taking with regard to his total disregard of international law. He's walked out of United 66 international organizations, many of them UN organizations, climate change, the UN Human Rights Commission, UNESCO, what have you. So but all these countries were not uncomfortable with that till they became the targets of Trump's policies, and now they're talking about rupture, and they don't know where to go. You see, the other thing about rupture is this: they don't know what to do, where to go. Now, Carney has reached out to China and taken some decisions with regard to opening up trade and everything else with China, especially import of electronic vehicles. He's sending a signal to the United States that we are going to decrease our dependence on you. He has reversed course on India. We began talking about an FTA with Canada. And Canada has said it's going to reach out to the other countries in the global south in order to create more space for themselves diplomatically and against the kind of domination that the United States has. Now, Europe doesn't know what to do. Europe doesn't necessarily have the same options that Canada has because both France, Macron, they've been pretty clear that China cannot be allowed to penetrate the European market without a quid pro quo, and he's been demanding a quid pro quo. Germany has been, in a sense, its economic strength has been eroded, firstly, by actually huge transfers of technology and investment from Germany into China, which became their biggest trading partner. And now, with China developing the kind of muscle that it has, there is a danger to Europe's economy and its global role. So they don't have this option of moving towards China. Also, the other factor that is in their minds is that they see China and Russia coming together, and that China, and they keep saying that China is supporting Russia in its Ukraine conflict, and they've been appealing to China to not support Russia. So that element also is there. So the this rupture business, as I said, to sum up, is because the West now, including Canada, they really don't know which way to go. And it's not an easy thing for them to accept that accept Western disunity, because this will erode their power vis-a-vis the global South, where power is moving, economic and political power is moving steadily. So the days of G7 domination, Western domination, transatlantic domination, which is already getting diluted, the process will be accelerated because of this rupture.
So one final question, and it relates to India. A lot was being said about the way the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he was handling Trump, basically not responding to his provocations. A lot was being said that India should respond. India is such a big country, we cannot stay silent. But finally, what comes out that the way he's been humiliating the European Union leaders, he's humiliating people right, left, and center, releasing their private messages. I mean, unheard of and unseen. Do you think that the Prime Minister was perhaps the only leader who read Trump well?
I think our Prime Minister has behaved with great restraint and with wisdom, and has not fallen into the trap of getting into public arguments with Trump, because Trump's ego is so huge that if he feels he's being countered, he can act irrationally as he's been doing. And as you've rightly said, the manner in which he's trashing and humiliating Western leaders, the manner in which he's humiliated the French president. I mean, successor of de Gaulle, and he's making fun of him, humiliating him. He says, well, if he doesn't want to join the border peace, it doesn't matter. He doesn't have much long to go in any case. And then he recounts how he threatened him with all kinds of tariffs. He wanted him to double the prices of pharmaceuticals in France, and Macron was resisting, and how he was browbeating him, this and that. Now, fortunately, apart from one or two statements Prime Minister made in Parliament and in public in rallies, that we'll protect the interests of our farmers, dairy people, and our fishermen, this and that, we've not got into a scrap with him. We've not telephoned him where he could say, Modi, I love you, you're a great man, but you have to sign on. And then announced later on that he told me, sir, whatever you want, I'll do, that kind of thing. So he's been very wise in this respect. Xi Jinping has stood his ground, dealt with him on an equal basis. And Trump and Putin has been playing a very deft psychological game in talking very positively about Trump, saying that his intentions are good, and that et cetera, et cetera. It's very, very clever psychological moves, where his larger goal is to divide the United States and Europe and encourage Trump to deal directly with him, et cetera, et cetera. So he has a different optic, but still surprises me that knowing, after all, Putin is very shrewd. The Russians are doing their homework. They know what this man is, character is, what he says. They all see what we are seeing. And yet they maintain a positive discourse towards him for the reasons that I mentioned, this is extremely clever geopolitics that they are playing.
We'll have to conclude on that, sir. Thank you so much. And I'll come back to you with some fresh questions the next time around. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.